Welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ daily news television show broadcasting live and available on demand on your favorite streaming channels. Analytics company vidIQ has certified the Queer News Tonight YouTube channel as the world's most popular LGBTQ news streaming show. Our queer stories have reached over 10 million views.
We are proud that Queer News Tonight has more YouTube subscribers than any other LGBTQ brand in Florida. We thank you for watching and supporting our voice in the queer community. There is no other news program in the LGBTQ world like Queer News Tonight.
It is Thursday, June 26th. We are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we will tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
You're watching Queer News Tonight, the world's first daily LGBTQ evening news show.
Welcome to the world's most important LGBTQ evening news show. Hotspots Magazine Happening Out Television Network is a nonprofit 501c3 media company in the same model as PBS and NPR, but designed for the LGBTQ community.
Our nonprofit mission is to support the 11 pillars of the LGBTQ community. We want to inform and educate the key issues of lesbian, trans, Latino, Black, healthcare, seniors, students, faith, social justice, business, and queer culture. Help us support our diverse community. We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ nonprofit media companies in America, Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network. In 2025, our magazine is celebrating 40 years of the LGBTQ experience, and Queer News Tonight is celebrating our 5th anniversary with more than 10,000 LGBTQ television stories. We present Pride Fest in August, and we declare that love is in the air with Pride Fort Lauderdale on Valentine's Day, February 14th. Our magazine, events, television, news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ and broader community.
In 2025, more than 100 community leaders will sit at this table and share their voices as our anchors. Together, we host this show to support our diverse family. Let's meet today's anchors at Queer News Tonight. Let's welcome anchor Alexander Zenoz. He is a talented Cuban-American singer, songwriter, actor, and musician from Miami. He's opened for icons like Deborah Cox, starred in indie hits, and now has a band named the Birds of Paradise. Alexander, you're wrapping up your season in Florida and preparing for P-Town. Tell me, what's happening out?
I'm glad you asked. I'm excited to invite you all out to the West End Lounge on July 1st. You may be familiar with the beautiful ambiance and premium spirits of the West End Lounge, but you really do not get the full lounge experience until you add live music to the mix. This Tuesday from 8 p.m. to 9:30, I will be performing my summer send-off. I look forward to seeing you before I head off to P-Town for the summer.
That sounds wonderful. So have you been performing at the West End before?
Yeah, I've been performing for about a year now, did my whole residency and everything.
That's wonderful. You know, I do also have to ask, because you're going to P-Town, and the former Cape Codder, I grew up on Cape Cod, used to work at P-Town. Where are you going to be in P-Town?
So, surprisingly enough, this is going to be my first time in P-Town. I've never been. I'm going in blind, and then clearly my eyes are going to be opened. And I'll be staying at the Crown and Anchor and working with them as well as the Tin Pan Alley.
Their pool is good. They tend to have good frozen cocktails. They're right in the middle of everything. I used to work at one of Ann Packard's print gallery. So, like, if you see any of the people down there, it's a fun time. Just be aware, the boat slip has a wonderful tea dance, but at night, don't go under the dock.
No.
Now, at the West End Lounge, do you perform solo? Do you have pianist backup? Do you sing over tracks? Tell us what we can expect.
So it's just me on the piano, but I think that's more than enough. I'm pretty big and loud and everything. I bring you upbeat music, piano bar classics, pop rock, and I really get the mood going. It's always best when people come in and we usually, get to lift our glasses and sing together. And
most importantly, will you be wearing that outfit that's in your promo?
I wish. Maybe if things get hot enough this summer, I'll be able to take off my shirt finally.
Well, that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer and nonprofit media platform like this in the whole entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight. Looks forward to seeing you at the West End Lounge. Now let's welcome anchor Alex Morash. Alex has served as editor-in-chief of Options Magazine, media director of the National LGBTQ Task Force, and press secretary for the Florida Democratic Party. Alex, SilverServe Luncheon to bring seniors together on July 11th in Wilton Manors. Tell me, what's happening out?
Sure thing, Rex. On Friday, July 11, SunServe will host its monthly SilverServe Luncheon from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at either Hagen Park Community Center or Island City Park in Wilton Manors, Florida. This vibrant event will offer seniors a welcoming space to enjoy a meal, socialize, and connect with their community. Held on the second Friday of each month, the luncheon fosters meaningful conversations and support among older adults. Attendees must pre-register online to participate. Full event details and registration information can be found at sunserve.org. Yeah, we post about SunServe's luncheons all the time, and I always hear wonderful things about how it's a really nice place for seniors to engage and have a space to really get to know each other. Because sometimes, especially if you're a newer retiree coming down to Wilton Manors, you might not know anyone, you might not know where to go, and there's one way to just meet people and really get to know each other.
Absolutely. And, we often talk about, the isolation of elders. And like you said, if you're new to the area or you're just not sure where to go, because Wilton Manors can be a little bit intimidating, especially, for its nightlife, this is a great way to kind of meet some of your neighbors or make some new friends really quickly. And it's just, a nice relaxed setting to hang out and enjoy. I'm curious, though, it'd be interesting, if it's only just for seniors or if other people can come, because I think it would be interesting to be able to come and go into these organizational events and meet some seniors and actually have those conversations, because they have stories.
Are you saying you haven't gotten your AARP card yet?
Look, I may or may not have gotten the letter in the mail already.
Well, even people at a very young age for what is considered, I'm not that far away from it myself. So I would imagine anyone, if you have your AARP card, you're old enough.
Well, maybe I should just go get that letter tomorrow. That is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight. Looks forward to seeing you at SilverServe Luncheon for seniors on July 11th.
And let's welcome tonight's lead anchor, Rex Rogosch. Rex is a visionary designer with over 30 years of experience in product design, interior design, and architecture. Also known in the drag community as International Lords, Rex recently returned to performing. As president and co-founder of Lantera, he champions mental health awareness through vibrant, inclusive events. Rex, Chu Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar will be screened at Coral Gables on June 28th. Tell me what's happening out, Rex.
Absolutely, Alex. Coral Gables Arts Cinema will celebrate the 30th anniversary of Chu Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar, with a special screening on Saturday, June 28th at 10 p.m. Directed by Bebe Kudron, this cult classic stars Patrick Swayze, John Leguizamo, and Wesley Snipes as three drag queens on a wild cross-country adventure. When their car breaks down in Snydersville, they bring color, charm, and chaos to the conservative town. Film lovers and drag fans alike will gather for a nostalgic, laughter-filled night. Tickets and event details will be available at gablescinema.com. I can't believe it's 30 years that this movie's been out. I remember the first time that I did drag was to the theme song, Body Beautiful, from the movie. And I came out in this giant sheet that I had made into a skirt, because at the time my parents didn't know I was gay, and I had to do this kind of performance, and I had my father make me these shoes, and I said I was going as Halloween as Frankenstein. He took shoes and he glued wood to the bottom of them and made platform shoes for me. Secretly, it was for a drag performance at a club in Las Vegas. But I just remember watching that movie and going, wow, this is something that I can relate to. And it wasn't something that I had to feel guilty about watching, because to me, it wasn't it wasn't really a gay movie to me at the time. It was just a movie that happened to have LGBT people in it. But it was really more about life and, how people can come together as a community and get past differences. So I'm glad that it's being screened again, and I hope that it becomes something like the Rocky Horror Picture Show, where we come up with funny lines and things to do during the movie, because I think it really is something that really shows, how far we have come as a community at large, but it also kind of harkens back to that nostalgia where we all came from. So,
no, it is funny to think about how many years ago it was. It's sad to think that both One of the leads had passed away along with Robin Williams, who were both in that movie. And just thinking about, I always loved her. I always semi-forget and then remember that Stockard Channing did a wonderful job in To Wong Foo. I loved her. For those that don't, she played like the sort of housewife with the not very nice husband who didn't like spices. It was, the most like cliche like housewife problem, but like it worked for that movie. And it's always a fun one to see. And my friends and I will always rough each other up and say, "Why is that Latin boy in a dress crying?"
Classic. Absolutely.
No, it's honestly such a phenomenal movie. I am surprised to see that there is really not a piece of film, like LGBTQ film, that has matched it in all these years. And it's so ahead of its time. I think even to get Patrick Swayze, who was like a sex symbol at the time, especially for tons of women all over America, and then you have him in drag. And I think he did such a respectable, very honest job as like what it is to like be genuinely a drag queen during that time and everything. It was brilliant, and they really approached it. It's gorgeous, it's heartfelt, and it's not to be missed at all.
Absolutely.
And that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight, which looks forward to seeing you at the screening of To Wong Foo, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar on June 28th.
Now let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Rex Rogosch, and let's queer up South Florida and Florida. Florida GOP rep nearly died from abortion ban, still defends it and blames Democrats for it. A Republican congresswoman from Florida is making headlines after revealing she nearly died from a pregnancy complication, yet still defends the state's extreme abortion ban. In May 2024, just as Florida's 6-week abortion ban took effect, Congresswoman Kat Cammack rushed to the emergency room. Doctors told her she had a life-threatening ectopic pregnancy where a fertilized egg implants outside the uterus and cannot survive. If left untreated, it could rupture and cause internal bleeding, even death. The safest option was to shoot a shot of methotrexate to dissolve the pregnancy. But because methotrexate can also be used for abortions, Florida doctors hesitated, afraid of legal consequences under the new law. Cammack spent hours in the AR showing staff the law on her phone and even tried to call the governor. Eventually, doctors agreed to give her the shot. But despite the ordeal, Cammack says she doesn't blame the law. Instead, she blames Democrats. She told the Wall Street Journal, quote, "It was absolute fear-mongering at its worst. There will be some comments like, well, thank God we have abortion services, even though what I went through wasn't an abortion," end quote. While technically not classified as an abortion, ectopic pregnancies are still treated with the same medicines and procedures that have become restricted in abortion bans across the country. At least 5 women have died in states with similar bans after being denied treatment for miscarriages or complications. Others, like in Texas, have lost their fertility after being turned away. Still, Cammack says she opposes abortion rights, but adds, quote, "I would stand with any woman, Republican or Democrat, and fight for them to be able to get care in a situation where they are experiencing a miscarriage and an ectopic pregnancy," end quote. Florida remains one of the strictest states in the nation on abortion access, penalizing doctors with prison time and fines. This story raises deeper concerns, not only about reproductive rights, but about the growing political trend of ignoring lived experience in favor of ideology. So this again is someone manipulating the law to benefit themselves. We've had this conversation about other laws and what our famous Republican people in government, I can't even call them, representatives, people in government are, doing. They're saying one thing, and then when, the situation happens to them, they're like, oh, but that's not what the law says. We keep talking about, fertilized egg equals human being. So if you're getting rid of it, that equals abortion. But, now all of a sudden she's in a terrible predicament. And I would never wish that on anybody to have to, to go through that and have to make the decision, or have your doctors, which we've been saying, make a decision to save your health. And now you're fighting for your life and going, I'm going to call the governor. Well, what about that woman who doesn't have that option, who is, coming in off the streets? The doctors are going to give her the same hesitation. And she's not going to be, but no, the doctors are going to go, well, the law reads. So, it infuriates me that they bend the law to their whim when it sees fit.
I think there are three parts of this story. In a way, I agree with the Congresswoman that it's the Democrats' fault, in the way that we had the most unprecedented Supreme Court ruling that was leaked months ahead of time while the Democrats controlled the House, the Senate, and the White House. They got advanced warning that there was going to be this attempt to repeal Roe v. Wade. They had a year and a half before they lost power. They didn't do it. So I think, yes, in a way, it is their fault, madam, that they allowed you to pass this sort of law to begin with. But I'll be honest, I am uncomfortable with how the doctors handled it, because the law is a terrible law. It shouldn't exist. It does technically say, for this exact situation, it's exempt and you need to perform it. And I was always taught that medicine is something that, if it's the difference between doing the right thing and saving a life and going to jail, you do the right thing and save a life as a doctor. And to see doctors continuously say, no, we're going to put our comfort as one of the highest paid professions in the country ahead of women's lives. And I have not seen them do much to try and prevent these sort of laws from being passed. The American Medical Association has been great at preventing universal health care for a century, but they can't keep laws like this from happening. Shame on all of them. And quite frankly, we feel like, well, are you going to hit the pro-life Congresswoman? Of course, the most despicable human beings I've ever met on this earth are pro-life activists. They are awful. When I used to work at Media Matters, we were a big open office. The people next to me were the ones monitoring abortion issues. The hate mail, the vitriol that people would send to them, it's a different level that I haven't seen on any other issue. These people have killed doctors. They are not good people. I don't honestly care if this woman and her supporters live or die. They're such awful human beings. So that's my thought.
I mean, so I don't disagree with you on a couple of things. Unfortunately, we do live in a very litigious world, and more so litigious country. So I do understand, having friends who are doctors, and have had these conversations with them. They are put in a huge kind of quandary, because it's not just them. It's the people, it's the hospital they work for. It's the board of trustees that's above the hospital. So unfortunately, there's too many layers there to just say, okay, doctor, you need to do the right thing, because it's not just putting the doctor at risk, it's putting the hospital at risk, and it's putting the licenses of many people at risk. So if they risk that, then they're risking the health care for everybody that walks through the door, because they're no longer there. It's not to say that it's right or wrong. It's to say that it is a difficult position. What I have a problem with is that we have a situation where these laws are written, yes, with exclusions, but they're still vague. And any lawyer can twist it and turn it. And we have a woman who has gone in there, who has the power and the means to call somebody to say, Daddy, I want this golden egg now, right? Like, the rule doesn't apply to me. And that's what I have a problem with. I don't have a problem necessarily with the doctor pausing and going, we need to speak with our legal counsel about this, because the rule is very vague.
No, I think most Americans agree with you.
Yeah.
I would just reminding people, there's a little bit more there, and we shouldn't just give doctors a pass. But what do you think about this, Alex?
No, I'll piggyback on that idea too. I think it's crazy, because she's twisting a narrative that's clearly been fear-mongering from the Republican side. You have these pressures that are coming from the top, exactly like Rex is saying, where they come in and, it started with the rollbacks on DEI. It started with everything. And then you have these corporations and these companies that follow, because they're so afraid of it affecting their profit. So one, you have these, for-profit organizations like the health organization that we should have, things should be better. But then, just like you said, it's so terrible that these doctors took an oath to help, and took, that you went through this to help people. It shouldn't just be about the profit, and it shouldn't be this complicated, and it shouldn't take somebody calling the governor of a state to get a doctor to change what they're doing. But then now to change it onto something that this woman actually said was that people are going to say that thank God for abortion services, but it's not that. But it's true. These studies, these medicines, these chemicals wouldn't have ever come about if it wasn't for funding into abortion studies and
well, let's be clear.
everything.
She had an abortion. Like, perfectly fine to call it abortion. There's nothing wrong with one of them. You know?
Agreed.
But the other thing I'll just say on like the whole system, like when dealing with fascism and awful bigotry and abuse, because trying to prevent a woman from having an abortion is a form of violence. Let's just be perfectly clear on it. The only way we fight it sometimes is as individuals we say no. Whether it being a teacher saying, no, I will not dead name a trans kid, send me to jail, fire me, whatever. You have to take that stand. If the doctor to save, you have to save the life. If we don't do that, we're no better than the Nazis who are putting these laws into place.
Agreed. It is going to take somebody to stand up and say, this is enough. The problem is when and who. And I think that's the biggest kind of conundrum here is, do I make the stand and risk everything that I have to help the masses, or do I kind of straddle the line and try to make the best decision? And unfortunately, we are in a position right now that we should be taking a stand. I just don't see it happen.
We're way past the point of like, maybe we should, like, now we're at the, like, if you don't take a stand, you should be put in with the rest of them when they go to Nuremberg, sort of thing. Like, they're a collaborator at that point, and that's the only way that we're going to get past all this stuff at this point, unfortunately. I'm not exactly in a situation where I'm at risk of going to jail anytime soon. I'm not doing any medicine, but like, yeah, I think more of us have to start saying, it's time. If it's not now, then when are we going to say no?
Absolutely. Well, that is the big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.
Now, let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Alex Morash, and let's queer up the USA view. Zohran Mamdani's primary win sparks Islamophobic attacks from anti-LGBTQ far-right. New York City may be on the cusp of electing its first Muslim, Asian, and African-born mayor, and the far-right is fuming. State Assembly member Zohran Mamdani, a self-described Democratic socialist, appears to have won the city's Democratic mayoral primary. But as celebrations erupted among progressives, anti-LGBTQ MAGA voices responded with a wave of Islamophobic hate. Right-wing conspiracy theorist Laura Newmar, a close ally of Donald Trump, wrote on Twitter that Zohran Mamdani hasn't even been a U.S. citizen for 10 years. He is literally supported by terrorists, and New York City is about to see 9/11 2.0, end quote. In another post, she wrote in all caps, quote, "Why do we not have laws that say foreigners cannot hold office in the U.S.? What the hell?" End quote. Rex Rogosch, the anti-LGBTQ founder of Notorious Libs of TikTok, shared a video of Mamdani's victory and simply wrote, "Rest in peace, New York City." Charlie Kirk, who runs the anti-LGBTQ youth group Turning Point USA, linked Mamdani to 9/11 in a post, as did Representative Nancy Mace of South Carolina. Meanwhile, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, a favorite of Queer News Tonight, posted a photoshopped image of the Statue of Liberty wearing a burqa, with the words, "This hits hard." Despite these attacks, Mamdani's win was powered by support from a broad coalition who backed his bold platform of rent freezes, free busing, affordable housing, and wealth taxes. I actually do have to disclose to viewers in journalistic integrity, I did donate to Zohran Mamdani a few months ago. He is my communist crush, and hashtag Brown Boy Summer. So that's just where I want to begin with all this. He has done an amazing job as a candidate. I actually on this show about a year ago got into a back and forth with the president of the Dolphin Dems, where I was like, candidates have to give people a reason to vote for them. And I was told that that's a purity test. And I was like, no, this is exactly what I'm talking about, of giving them something. He ran on a simple platform that anyone can understand. Free buses, rent freezes, which affects 44% of renters in New York City, and public grocery stores was his other thing. You don't need to fill out a form for any of that to apply to you. It just happens. And everyday people understand that, even if it's not the best idea, that they think it's better than some of the other options. On this Islamophobia for a second when I was reading the script, I was like, are we talking about Laura Loomer, or are we talking about what Andrew Cuomo and Eric Adams and the Democratic establishment have been saying? Because there was a super PAC for Andrew Cuomo, Democratic run. They prepped, and thank God someone stopped it from going to print, an image of him where they lengthened his beard and darkened his skin as part of their Islamophobic attack. The Islamophobia that Zohran has gotten is disgusting. He's been getting death threats. And it's also, to me, it also says he's on to something. You know, I think he's going to go far with this.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say I agree. Sorry. I think you're right. He's onto something, and you hear a lot of the retort coming from the Democratic side of the party, being like, "Oh, he really got through to Gen Z using TikTok. It's all that he's really good at social media." And it's the points he came to the table with, the progressive things he campaigned on. He had 50,000 close supporters who were so moved by the things he was speaking on that they went door to door championing what he wanted. And so it's crazy that you're right. It's so funny because the Islamophobia, sometimes the calls coming from inside the House and the very old centrist Democratic House. And they keep putting up and petitioning these terrible, awful candidates like they did here in Florida for our midterm election with Chris Christie. And it's these old white men, and it's time for something new. It's time for something better. They need to stop saying things like the young people don't want to vote. No, you stopped listening to us, and we don't want to vote for your old, stale, nasty-ass candidate. Like, please, thank you.
Well, and also, I mean, you bring up a good point, who cares how he reaches out to people? I mean, we were talking about people who have campaigned on Grindr. Mm-hmm. I mean, use the technology there to reach the people that you need to reach and the people that you want to reach. And if TikTok and social media is a way to, get out there and campaign, more power to you. And the fact that, she says he hasn't been a U.S. citizen for, more than 10 years. He's a U.S. citizen. Who cares how long he's a U.S. citizen? He's not running for president. So, who cares? Like right. Like you're throwing stuff out there that has no merit to the conversation at all. You're literally just throwing stuff out there to stir up somebody, because most people do not read entire comments. They read the highlights. They read whatever's in caps, and they go, "Oh, Islamic," or "Oh, not U.S. citizen," and they forget to read the whole book. They skim read the paragraph, and that's the problem with most people. And so, going out on social media platforms does give a shorter time frame, so you get your point across really quick, really precise, instead of what these older, mainstream, Democratic and Republican people are doing is they remember the days when they had to sit there and pull, full page ads, and they had full commercials, and we don't live in that world anymore.
But the content and the context of what you're talking about in those short forms are just as important.
100%.
Alexander was bringing on something important, because some of the establishment commentators and consultant class have tried to wipe away his victory. It's like, we just need to do better TikTok. And as you're saying, he had 50,000 volunteers. Mm-hmm. DSA, because I used to be a leader of a DSA chapter, I know that New York City alone has 10 to 15,000 dues-paying DSA members. Most of them were definitely involved in Zohran's campaign and were out there knocking on doors and pushing it. Yes, he had great social media. That's how I figured out who he was in Florida. But for his actual moving voters, those in-person things helped. His personality on TikTok was great. Watching him and Hassan Piker to interview each other, like, people talk about we need a Joe Rogan of the left. I'm like, Zohran and Hassan, I could watch them all day, every day, and so could most of America. Yeah. They were fun and engaged, but like the consultant class is just doing it as a way of trying to get around the deeper conversation, which is they were all claiming it's a messaging problem. And I'm like, you literally had a Bill Clinton endorsed candidate lose, and there was so much other racism. It was so hollow to see some of this, like, a few other highlights of the problematic New York City race was I very much enjoyed Al Sharpton attacking Zohran Mamdani and Brad Lander, a Jewish American, for cross-endorsing each other, but not in cross-endorsing Adrienne Adams, a black woman. He said this while he was endorsing old white man Andrew Cuomo. And I'm like, I'm sorry, if you're complaining we're not endorsing Adrienne Adams and pushing a black woman out of the race, why are you endorsing Andrew Cuomo at this event? And I very much enjoyed Andrew Cuomo attacking Brad Landers on Israel, not being pro-Israel enough. And I appreciate Brad Landers for responding back. You don't get to tell me how to be a Jew. So that was what this race was all about. And I'm glad that Zohran won. I'm glad that Brad Landers did so well. And honestly, screw the Democratic establishment. I just love watching them squirm.
Well, that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight. Now, let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Rex Rogosch, and let's queer up the USA View. South Carolina Capitol bows to Republican AG repeals conversion therapy ban. South Carolina's capital city has repealed its ban on conversion therapy, despite an outcry from LGBTQ advocates and mental health professionals. The Columbia City Council voted 4-3 this week to overturn the 2021 ordinance, which had prohibited licensed therapists from attempting to change a minor's sexual orientation or gender identity. The law carried a $500 fine for violators and excluded religious leaders. Mayor Daniel Rickerman and council members Peter Brown, Ed McDowell, and Will Brennan all voted to lift the ban, citing pressure from South Carolina's Attorney General Alan Wilson. Wilson, a Republican running for governor, claimed the ordinance violated state and federal laws and threatened to cut off state funding if it remained in place. One voice of frustration was Jessica Thomas, a Columbia mayoral candidate, who told the Post and Courier, quote, "It's such a betrayal," end quote. Mental health experts also sounded alarms. Dr. Isabel Mendel told council members, quote, "For y'all to give in and capitulate without a battle of any kind is strange to me. Where is the outrage? You haven't tried. You haven't fought it," end quote. Local attorney Nikki Schutt even offered to represent the city for free if the ordinance was challenged. She said, quote, "The city of Columbia is a refuge city in South Carolina for LGBTQ people. It's where we can feel safe," end quote. She said, according to the paper, quote, "I laid down roots because I feel safe here," end quote. Yet, despite pleas from citizens, medical groups, and attorneys, the council moved forward with the repeal for the second time in 2 weeks. Conversion therapy remains widely discredited by U.S. medical organizations. A 2023 coalition of 28 such groups condemned the practice outright. Still, politics and pressure appear to have carried the day in Columbia. I'm surprised that they didn't say we're protecting the children, because that seems to be the call to arms. We're protecting the children. And in this case, we're not protecting the children. We're abusing them. I mean, conversion therapy. If you've ever watched A Clockwork Orange, just think of that, and that's what it is. If you haven't, go watch it. It's brainwashing, and it's and it's child abuse is what it is. Period. And the fact that it was banned, but had a religious excerpt in it, is the biggest abuse of them all, because how many people have we heard and dealt with in religious contexts that have abused children outright, period, on all forms. So the fact that we now have a government who has, a representative, a Republican representative, who's probably used "let's protect the children" as a call to arms on many things, LGBTQ, is now using a law to abuse the children. So again, we're talking out both sides of our mouth.
First off, thank you for bringing up the religious exemption, because I was looking at that and I was like, I'm sorry, I think it's inappropriate when priests abuse children. Why? I don't think we should create exemptions for that. There's two things on here. On the one side, of course, the elected officials are cowards, and I hope people look at that and think, I'm going to file to run against them and dumb crap. There is also the honest issue of municipalities should not be deciding laws on mental health treatment.
Agreed.
And this is not the city council's fault. I'm not going to blame the Democrats for once. I think I shall blame RF Kennedy Jr. and Donald Trump, because they technically control HHS, and HHS should be banning conversion therapy. They should be regulating it out and making it's illegal to do this sort of practice. Where's the federal government? This is exactly what they're supposed to do with these sort of healthcare issues, but this poor municipality is trying to deal with it.
At this point, why don't we just bring back waterboarding and dungeons? I'm not, and that's the problem. It's just the hypocrisy of this government. It just repeats itself and repeats itself. And you're right. Calling out these people's names. Hopefully the local people, when election comes, they can get in there and get rid of these people. But what's interesting to me and what's scary to me is that this is just a city ordinance? Like, where's the state ordinance to get rid of conversion therapy, and doesn't that trump this one? And like, so, you know, where's the line? You know, we've seen time and time again cities having to, you know, put into law things to get around state laws. We've seen it with flag bans and those types of things, but now we're going backwards, right? So can't we take what's, you know, done federally, or, you know, like, what laws was this? What federal and state laws was this going against? You know, I'd like to see those sightings. Like, please tell me what those laws were, because if that's the case, then we need to go after those laws as well.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if we have to go. I'm pretty sure the Health and Human Service Secretary can start the regulatory process to ban this practice. Mm-hmm. And whether it doesn't matter which party's in power, I say blame whoever's in power at the time, because it's fun. And true. But like, they should be doing a regulation to phase this out. It is abuse.
Absolutely.
The medical community knows it's abuse. The medical community is very involved in the HHS regulatory policy, and they should just do it already. The fact that we need to legislate is absurd. We already passed it.
Child services should already be busting people's doors down for, especially the very religious people who go and you know, partake in this. I think it's crazy because there is no statistical evidence in any way, shape, or form, nothing new, nothing old, that shows that this is helpful in any way. It actually is contrary to that. The fact that it shows that it raises the suicide rate in these young people. Like, they end up killing themselves. It only appeases the parent who's forcing their own ideologies and indoctrinating their children into their religion and into their way of thinking, rather than opening themselves up to the reality of what we're actually dealing with here.
To be fair, it does sometimes increase tabloid sales because so many conversion therapy people are caught in gay sex scandals.
Well, and also
that's good.
Also true, but also it says, you know, it makes a point in there, licensed professionals. Well, I can't believe that there are actual trained, licensed mental health professionals that would even practice in conversion therapy. Anyway, it's typically religious people or people who have said that they've been converted. I would like a list of people who actually practice law-abiding mental health services that are behind conversion therapy in general. And I guarantee you there's probably none.
No.
So that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There's no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.
Now, let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Alex Morash, and let's queer up gay culture. DC welcomes first LGBTQ affordable housing for elders. Washington, D.C. reached a historic milestone, its first ever affordable housing development dedicated to older LGBTQ adults. It is now open and accepting applications. Located in Southeast DC's Fort DuPont neighborhood, this welcoming new space is led by Mary's House for Older Adults, a nonprofit committed to supporting the unique needs of queer and same-gender loving elders. The residence features 15 single occupancy units and over 5,000 square feet of shared space, including a communal kitchen and dining room. The building offers Americans with Disability Act adaptable units, health support, and wellness programs, all designed to create a dignified, supportive environment for aging LGBTQ folks. According to SAGE, a national advocacy group for queer elders, and many LGBTQ adults, particularly those who are transgender, non-binary, or gender non-conforming, face serious housing barriers, often due to discrimination. About half of older same-sex couples report housing discrimination, and nearly 90% of trans and gender-diverse adults fear it. To learn more, visit maryshousedc.org or call 240-972-2500. If you are looking for such services in Florida, the residences at Equality Park in Wilton Manors offers affordable housing development with supportive services for LGBTQ+ seniors. And, you know, as a former DC resident, it's nice to see these sort of stories. Normally, like, I'm traditionally very critical of senior-only affordable housing, but those are normally big developments, just because I've seen, like, we were mentioning Cape Cod earlier. On Cape Cod, you know, they would never do affordable housing unless it was senior-only. But this is not that sort of complex.
No.
Reminds me more of youth support services. These are a small group of 15 units. These are probably, I would imagine this is to help seniors with very more specific needs than you would think of traditional affordable housing. But it's also a reminder that, like, you know, the best way to help all queer people with affordable housing is more affordable housing for everyone. You know, that's how you actually make it easier for everyone and get those rents down. But this sounds like a very nice project, which is an unusually nice thing for me to say about something in D.C.
I mean, affordable housing definitely is an issue, but it's going to be unfortunately solved by grassroots efforts like this. And so, you know, the overall government, you know, stepping in for affordable housing, it's not going to happen, unfortunately. As somebody who works in the building community, it's impossible to cut through red tape. What I will say is, you know, the discrimination is definitely, with the rollback of DEI and everything, is going to become bigger and bigger fears. So when you have places, you know, like, you know, here in Wilton Manors in DC, there's another one in Philadelphia where you have a growing community of older residents, and the prices of rent in those areas keep escalating, and you're on a fixed income. You do need something for senior living, whether it be non-LGBTQ based or just regular senior living. But however, because we are dealing with people that have, you know, possible extra discriminatory, you know, circumstances being LGBTQ, they might be also then looked at a regular senior housing and going, I'm sorry, you can't be here, which then puts them at even more risk of being homeless. So, you know, I agree with you. I firmly believe that we need more affordable housing. I mean, as somebody who is quite comfortable with a steady job, it's even difficult for me to, you know, find housing at times. So I you know, the struggle. So to compound that, as, you know, being on elderly, you know, I've had to unfortunately put some of my own family members in elderly care, and the way to get into some of these elderly care, I mean, I felt like I was literally giving my life for them to go into housing, which is just unfortunate. So to have, you know, that, to be trans or LGBT or same-sex couple and then have to face that on top of a possible discrimination, I can see where they don't even want to go in.
Absolutely.
At all. Like, the fear would just be like, no.
And not just the current discrimination. We're talking about the lifelong discrimination they've experienced throughout some of the most, like, tumultuous LGBTQ, like anti-LGBTQ moments in our history. So, you know, I can't even imagine, like, the mental, like, ramifications of what that puts them in. So these specialized places that are out there helping them, I think that's really great, that that's an opportunity that they know that their community's there waiting for them, and it will help with their, you know, their care and their financial situations. And it's great to see these things, especially with all the chaos in the world. You're right. It's these small grassroots things that come up and give us those little sparks of hope.
So, and I'm not bashing the group by saying this. 15 single occupancy units, 10 to 15% of the District of Columbia's 600 to 100,000 residents are LGBTQ.
Yeah.
So, like, this is a nice little thing, but I just don't want to get people to think that, like, we've solved queer DC.
There's more work to be
so
done.
Much, yeah, absolutely.
Just the spark.
Yes. And I mean, I often joke with my partner, we're getting, you know, 1 or 2 more years and I get to be in that 55 plus community. And then I wouldn't have to worry about my rent raising. But, you know, you're right. This is a very, very small percentage. But, you know, more and more grassroots efforts need to be happen to help. And then maybe, just maybe, with all of this, you know, then we can then start looking at places, you know, at like the federal level or state level, to then start backing some of these types of projects.
Yeah, housing is a huge issue. We were just talking about, you know, a Bill Clinton endorsed candidate with $1 zillion lost because the other guy said the rent's too high, you know?
Yep. Absolutely. Well, that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by sharing and subscribing Queer News Tonight. Now let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Rex Rogosch, and let's queer up the politics. Representative Mary Miller calls Pride, quote, evil, pushes, quote, Family Month agenda. Illinois Republican Congresswoman Mary Miller is under fire again, this time for calling Pride Month, quote, evil, and pushing a resolution to replace it with what she calls, quote, Family Month. Speaking to the far-right Christian nationalist group, the Wall Builders, Miller said, quote, I believe God has left us on earth as believers to overcome evil with good, and Pride Month, in my opinion, is evil. The left hijacked it to promote gender confusion, to promote indecency, hypersexualizing our children, and actually grooming our children. So I decided I'm going to reclaim it for the family, end quote. But let's be clear, Pride Month wasn't hijacked. It was born out of protest. Queer and trans people, especially those most marginalized, led the way, fighting police brutality and systematic queerphobia. Pride has always leaned towards progress and liberation, not repression and control. Miller's so-called, quote, Family Month resolution is backed by anti-LGBTQ organizations, including the Family Research Council and Moms for America. She claims, quote, by recognizing June as Family Month, we reject the lie of pride and instead honor God's timeless and perfect design, end quote. Miller has a long record of targeting queer rights. She's pushed anti-trans bills, voted against marriage equality, and referred to trans Congresswoman Sarah McBride as, quote, a gentleman, end quote. As LGBTQ communities celebrate resilience and love, Miller's remarks are a stark reminder of what's still at stake. You know, it's funny that, she says God's perfect plan or whatever. So, again, here's somebody using religion and nitpicking what they want to use. And, if God's perfect plan was what? So she's saying God's perfect plan is family. Well, technically it wasn't, because Adam and Eve weren't supposed to necessarily do anything until they ate read your Bible, girl. So don't get me started on that. And read the right one, not the King James version, but the original scripture. So I digress. And again, it's save the children, save the children. The only grooming we're doing is making sure that our children are wearing beautiful clothes and have, perfectly cut hair and clean faces. That's the only grooming that any of us are doing with children. It's just, it irritates me that, somebody who's saying we have Family Month. Well, every day is Family Month around the world, because if you have a family, every day is your family. You're not fighting to have a family at all.
You're actually rewarded for it by
exactly.
taxes. You get money for your kids. Like, what?
Exactly.
I don't get money for being gay.
So why do we? Well,
I could.
That's a whole nother subject. So again, it's this whole, like they were talking about straight pride and why don't we have, it's again, you were trying to ask for something that you have every day already.
Bringing up P-Town again, when I worked at a t-shirt shop and we had, it was Hooks t-shirts in Provincetown, we had all these funny, very gay innuendo things. And I remember people would come in, straight people with children, they'd be like, this isn't family friendly. And I'd say there are 16 or 15 towns in Barnstable County, 14 of them are family friendly. Everything in this country is so family friendly. I get sick of it. As someone who is willfully childless, you damn Republicans who hate us for that, I will never have kids just to spite you now. It just disgusts me. And I get it. Attacking pride is an easy thing to do. I do it all the time. I'm a notorious pride critic. But you're making me a defender of pride, Mary. What the heck? And I will be referring to you as Gentleman Miller. Gentleman Miller. Goodness, what a terrible piece of work this one is.
Well, and it's funny you say family friendly, because, I think about, you can take your child to R-rated movies and watch, sex on the screen. As long as it's parental. So where is the line, right? Is that family friendly? When do you have the government tell you how to raise your child? Because if that same father would probably go, well, you can't tell me how to raise my child. I can take her to see or him to see whatever I want. We can go to UCF fights and watch, people beat the hell out of each other. That's my right as a parent. But then all of a sudden, we're grooming children, allowing them to go to gay prides. I have plenty of straight friends who have children, and they know that at certain times at Pride, we take the children home because that is their right. But they also sit there and they explain, that's okay to see two men holding hands. It's okay to see women holding hands. It's so, So let's leave what's right and what's parental rights. Let's leave it to the parents. If they're abusing the child, then, parental services needs to come in. But if we want children to go to Pride, at certain points, let them go to Pride. I'd rather them see something and have to have it explained to them than them grow up thinking that it's wrong.
Also, how many times, this was you might be too young to remember this era, but there was a time where if two men held hands, you're like, how dare you do that in front of my child? Don't you remember they were talking? And I hear this family stuff. I'm like, how soon is it going to be where they start saying anything remotely is not child friendly, and that needs to be family approvable again? You know, and how we're treating drag queens is like, oh well, drag is inherently inappropriate for children. And I'm like, I have seen some far uglier women in a dress than some men in a dress. How is that going to hurt them? You know,
it's crazy. They all go to the beach. You go to the beach with your families. There are people wearing much more scandalous things at the beach than at a Pride event. I have never seen anything like, maybe if you're going to the Eagle back room, but I don't think they're letting kids in there. Like, obviously
if you haven't seen anything more risque than a swim outfit at Pride, you haven't gone to the right place.
But I mean, you make a good point. I mean, what is the difference between two men kissing, two women kissing, or a man and a woman kissing in front of a child? It's all PDA. It's all sex. It's a verb. It's a way of expression. So you have to explain to the child either way, regardless of who it is. And most kids, if you watch most kids, they run up to each other in the school play lot. They hug each other. They kiss each other. They don't know any different because it's not wrong to them until we tell them it's wrong. Mm-hmm. So Pride's not grooming anybody. Pride's just showing people that things are okay and that there's a full spectrum, and it's up to the parent to describe and educate their child or not take them at all. It's not like Pride isn't announced.
Right. And there are many queer celebrations that aren't necessarily Pride that have straight people there. I think of Carnival in P-Town.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I will always remember the most family-friendly moment, which it was a jungle theme, and seeing a straight couple on one of the floats, and they were dressed as animals, and they were dry humping on a 8-foot rainbow penis, and I was so proud of those straight people.
Well, that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight. And those are today's headlines from Queer News Tonight. These anchors represent the best of our LGBTQ family. If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Join the conversation on your favorite streaming platform.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support. If our community is to grow and then thrive, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ stories in motion and sound. That's the passion of Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, Rex Rogosch, and on behalf of these LGBTQ reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Alexander Zenoz and Alex Morash, we will see you daily at 8 p.m. To our LGBTQ world, we hope you will join us by embracing love, generosity, bravery, be transformative, and queer. Good night.
Night.